Hello everybody, welcome back to another modelled writing video. So in today's video we are going to look at two task 1 questions for the IELTS writing part of the exam. So task 1 is when you'll be presented with a piece of data. Maybe it will be some pie charts, maybe it will be a table, maybe it will be a map, and it's your job to report back on this piece of data by selecting and reporting the main features and making comparisons where they are relevant. So it's the same task every time, it's just the data that changes. Okay, so today I'll show you how to approach this question. We're going to plan it and then we'll do the write-up as if we were in the exam itself. So I hope that this is useful for you today. As we go along, I'll be giving tips on how to get the top band scores. So this is really good practice for you in your IELTS preparation. All right, well, let's get started then. And the first task we're going to look at is going to be a bar chart. The chart below gives information about the ratio of income to spending in dollars by Americans by age range in 2013. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. Right, okay, so the same task, like I said, selecting and reporting the main features and making comparisons. Right, so what are we thinking about? We're thinking about ratio of income to spending. Okay, let's have a look. Here we are. This is the table, the chart, the bar chart in this case. Right, so in the darker blue, we've got the income, and then we've got the expenditure in this lighter blue colour. On the x-axis, we've got the ages, and on the y-axis, we've got this in dollars, so the amount of spending in dollars. Okay, initial thoughts. The younger and the older parts of society, members of society, have more of an equal ratio, whereas middle-aged members of society have higher income to their expenditure. Okay, let's have a think about our plan then. Now we want to group this into two groups. And it's up to, as long as it's logical, it's up to us, and anything you think, if you can justify it, that's okay. So we could do income in one group, then we could do expenditures in another group. I'm quite tempted to go by age for this one. Perhaps we could group together the more equal age ranges, like under 25, 65 to 74, and 75, and then we could talk about the other four. They're odd groupings, so yes, that's not a problem. They're not always going to be equal, but that's okay. I think we're going to do that. So a more equal distribution. Let's go under 25s, 65 to 74, and then over 75s. Okay, and then let's go higher income, dramatically higher income, 25 to 34, 35 to 44, 45 to 54, and 55 to 64. Okay, So then our overview, we don't want to use any, we don't want to use figures from the bar charts. We just want to make a sweeping statement here. So we could say something like the older members, or maybe as Americans got older, both their income and expenditures decreased. Now I know that this is the same for under 25s, but you're just making a sweeping statement here, so it doesn't all have to fit into this observation. Oh, their income and expenditures decreased. Okay then, I think that's good. So we've got our two groups, and then we've got our higher income for the other four age categories as well. Okay, so I think we can go into our write-up. We've got the question, and here we've got really nice words, synonyms for decrease, stay the same, increase. When you combine these with adverbs, they make for really nice sentences and ways to report on the trends here. Okay, let's make that a little bit smaller. There we go. So we'll start how we start every task 1 and task 2 for that matter. We need to paraphrase this sentence here. The chart below gives information about the ratio of income to spending in dollars by Americans by age range in 2013. So we can be more specific. The bar chart displays information data about regarding the earning to spending, maybe ingoings and outgoings. Maybe the comparison between ingoings and outgoings in dollars. We can't paraphrase that. That's okay. We don't need to paraphrase every single word here. By people living in the United States in different age groups in 2013. Let's read this back. The bar chart. Really important to go back, edit, double check. The bar chart displays data regarding the comparison between ingoings and outgoings in dollars by people living in the United States in different age groups in 2013. I think that's good. Okay, let's now go into our overview, and we can start by saying something like at first glance. That's quite a nice way, or on the whole, in general. At first glance, the older as the ages increased, the amount they earned and spent decreased. Particularly over 75. At first glance, as the ages increased, the amount they earned and spent decreased, particularly over 75. Maybe we could say, and the difference, maybe, and the difference be became smaller, particularly over 75. So the ratio became smaller there. Okay, I think that's good. So now we can go into our group, which we're going to talk about how there's not that they're in a similar range, both income and expenditures. So we could say there are some age groups in which the money going in and the dollars going out were not too dissimilar. And they're actually these three groups here, and they're all under 60,000, all falling under they fell under 60,000, and we can use the dollar sign if we want to. Okay, so let's talk about maybe under 25s first. So under 25, well, they actually spent more than they earned. Was the only group to spend more than they earned at 30. Oh, wait, does that make sense? They earned maybe losing 30,000 that year. Okay, then we were thinking about 65 to 74. 65 to 74. In fact, earned, in contrast, maybe, earned more than they, or received more money than they gave out at, oh, so we have increments of 10,000. So this is probably 53,000 here. 3,000. And let's talk about, the over 75s are almost identical. I would say, yes, they are. The only group to have almost identical figures was over 75. And what did they witness? About a 34,000? Very close to 34,000 for both. very close to 34,000 for both streams of money. Okay, let's read this back and see how it's sounding. There are some age groups in which the money going in and the dollars going out were not too dissimilar. They fell under 60, maybe these three categories fell under 60,000. Under 25 was the only group to spend more than they earned, losing 30,000 that year. 65 to 74, in contrast, received more money than they gave out at 53,000. The only group to have almost identical figures was over 75, very close to 34,000 for both streams of money. Okay, so that is our first group. Now let's go into our second group, and we have these four here. So the other four age ranges all had significantly higher incomes, while their earnings, well, they're all under 60,000 or less, while their expenditures remained, oh, and we're checking our spelling, that's really important, remained at 60,000 or less. Okay, so that's how we're grouping them. Let's talk about 34 to 45 having almost the same income. The groups, the ages, we could group them together actually. 35 to 54. Actually, that might be a bit confusing. 44 and 45 to 54. The ages 35 to 44 and 45 to 54, bit of a tongue twister there, had remarkably similar takings. They are around the 79 mark, with 45 to 54 only slightly higher at, or maybe 70, almost 79. Okay, we could talk about 55 and 64 having a high income as well. '55 to '64 also had a large income at say 74. And they spent around 56. They saw 56,000 And they saw 56,000. How could we describe not be removed? Be lost, maybe? Okay, now we can touch upon the last 25 to 34. On the other hand, 25 to 34 individuals earned the least in this grouping at just shy of 60,000. Maybe we can write it like this, $60,000. While they're spending, well, it was just over 10,000 less. Was just over 10,000 less. And then we could do a nice bracket to say about 48,000. Okay, let's read this back and see how it's sounding. The other four age ranges all had significantly higher incomes, while their expenditures remained at 60,000 or less. The ages 35 to 44 and 45 to 54, just checking those numbers there, had remarkably similar takings, with 45 to 54 only slightly higher at almost 79,000. 55 to 64 also had a large income at 74,000, and they saw $56,000 be lost. I'm not sure about the be lost. Maybe leave. On the other hand, 25 to 34 individuals earned the least in this grouping at just shy of $60,000, while their spending was was marginally over 10,000 less. 48,000. Okay, I think that's good. We've just double checked everything. Now let's count the words and see how we're doing. All right, so this has come to a grand total of 206 words, which I think is a nice amount for this. Just over 150 minimum there, which is good. So we've got our paraphrase introduction, we've got our overview, and then we've got our two groupings there. So hopefully that has helped you if you were struggling with bar charts a little bit. I think that they are quite a popular chart that can come up, but hopefully fairly straightforward there. Okay, let's go to the next one. Pie charts is next. Okay, and more than one pie chart, which we can see from this S at the end. The charts below gives information about the household percentage of spending on essential goods in China for the years 1995 and 2011. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. Okay, so let's have a look at the data itself. Right, so we have two different pie charts for the two different years, 1995 and 2011. This one is, maybe a bit trickier because the colour is in black and white, so it's a bit difficult, but we've got, let's have a look. The darkest color, household goods, that is. Then we've got this color, which looks like it's food. Then we've got medicine here. And then we've got clothing, which is the lightest shade of grey. Okay, so what takes up the highest amount of money and the budgets? That would be food for both years, initial observations. Food is quite high, then it's followed by clothing, then household goods, but medicine does make quite a bit of a jump there as well, an increase. Okay then, so I think we can think about our groupings now. We can group, how about we group in, we could do the two highest, so that would be food and followed by clothing. And then we could talk about household goods. And then medicine. So the overview, food consumes the majority, the highest portion of the budgets in both years. Okay, so that is a large section of this, is the food. Right, I think that's good. We've got our two groups there. We've got our overview statement. Let's now go to the write-up. And we've got our question, we've got some useful vocabulary, and of course we've got the data itself here. Right, so we want to start off by paraphrasing this sentence here. The chart below gives information about the household percentage of spending on essential goods in China for the years 1995 and 2011. So we could be more specific. The pie charts display the distribution of expenditure. The distribution of expenditure on essential goods, on vital items in China in the years 1995 and 2011. Let's do in percentages here so that it's clear. Okay, the pie charts display the distribution in percentages of expenditure on vital items in China in the years 1995 and 2011. Okay, I think that's good. Let's go into our overview, our sweeping statement. In general, food in both years constituted for the food in both years consumed the highest portion of budget. And we could say, maybe we could do an alternative, whereas medicine represented the least. Or maybe the lowest. In general, food in both years consumed the highest portion of budget, whereas medicine represented the lowest. I think that's good. We're not including data here, we're keeping it very general, our sweeping statement. Okay, so let's make a start on the two highest parts of the budget, which will be food and will be clothing. Okay, so the two areas in which families, actually, we didn't include, I'm just thinking now about the household percentage of spending. In the paraphrase, we could say we need to include that bit. The pie charts display the distribution in percentages of expenditure of family expenditure. Maybe we could do that. There we go. Okay. Back to the group. The two areas in which households spent or maybe dedicated the most money was food and clothing for both years. At 18% and over. So we've grouped them together, 18% and over. Okay. Food in particular. Food in particular. Consumed almost, I mean, it's almost three quarters of total outgoings in total vital critical outgoings in 1995 at 68%. Let's do the difference in years. So 2011 is 16 years later. So 16 years later, this figure fell by 9%. Okay, let's talk about clothing. Clothing. The other categories were considerably lower in percentages. Clothing was the second highest and only had and was and presented almost the same number for each year. 19% in 1995 and 1% less in 2011. Okay, let's read this back and see how it is sounding. The two areas in which households dedicated the most money was food and clothing for both years, at 18% and over. Food, in particular, consumed almost three quarters of total critical outgoings in 1995, at 68%. 16 years later, this figure fell by 9%. The other categories were considerably lower in percentages. Clothing was the second highest and presented almost the same number for each year, 19% in 1995 and 1% less in 2011. We could actually say and almost plateaued for each year because they were almost the same. 19% in 1995 and 1% less in 2011. Okay, so let's talk about the other two groups. We have medicine and we have household goods. So the other two areas in which families spent money. Medicine and household goods remained 12% and under throughout, we can say. So we're grouping them together here. Okay, let's have a think. So let's talk about how there wasn't much of a difference with household goods. So items for the house did not see saw only a steady increase in the latter year, reaching 12%, 3% increase there. Okay, so then we can talk about medicine. Medicine, and this actually saw quite a significant rise. So medicine, on the other hand, nearly tripled. Starting at 4% at the beginning of the study and ending with 11%. Okay, I think that's good. Maybe we could add a line about how in 2011, medicine and household goods together, they made what, 23%, almost a quarter. This boosted the 2011 combination. This led to medicine and household goods in 2011 together holding almost a quarter of the total at 23%. Okay, let's read this one back and see how we're doing here. The other two areas in which families spent money, medicine and household goods, remained 12% and under throughout. Items for the house saw only a steady increase. Maybe we could say saw a steady increase in the latter year, reaching 12%, 3% increase, a 3% rise. We don't want to repeat ourselves too much there. Medicine, on the other hand, nearly tripled, starting at 4% at the beginning of the study and ending with 11%. This led to medicine and household goods in 2011 together holding almost a quarter of the total at 23%. Okay, I think that's good. We've got our paraphrased introduction. We've added family here. We've got our overview, our general statements, and then we've got our two groups with the data in. Let's count the words for this one. Okay, so this total was 184, so over the 150 minimum there. But I hope you can see how we've approached this one. Sometimes you might want to talk about one pie chart and then the next. I thought as the key was the same for both, we could split them into two groupings here, and then we're naturally comparing and contrasting as we go along. Okay, well that brings us to the end of today's video. Thank you so much for coming along today. I hope that's been helpful, and do let us know if you've got any questions or comments. We really like to hear from you, and we'll see you in the next one.